wonderful people, welcome back to Coffee Over Apples. My name's Steph, and we are here giving you my July wrap-up in Times Square.
It could change the world. On we go!
This month I read quite a few books this month I'm really proud of, and that would be about 10 books this month, and I'm really excited to talk to you about some of my favorites, some of the not so favorites, and everything that is in between. This month I read volumes 5, 6, and 7 of the My Little Pony Friendship is Magic comics, and I read this as part of a challenge from a video I did very recently where I interviewed a brony about what it's like reading My Little Pony and whether he could convince me to become a Pegasister, because let's be honest, My Little Pony has never really been my thing. But whether that will change my mind or not is really up to what happens, because I have a few more volumes to read from that challenge, so I will leave the link above for that. Also this month, I ended up reading Vampire State Building as an arc that I got off of NetGalley, and I have to say I had really high hopes for this because it's by the same creators of The Walking Dead, and I am a huge fan of The Walking Dead, but I ended up giving this 3 out of 5 stars just because I thought the action was really good and the drawing style was absolutely amazing, but the story was okay. There was some reference to Native American folklore, and the kinds of vampires and where they came from was actually pretty darn cool, so I would suggest for any horror fans or graphic novel fans to go pick this up. And then next we have The Monk by Matthew Gregory Lewis, and this was my favorite book of the month. This book was absolutely fantastic, 5 out of 5 stars, and this is a gothic horror. It's from the late 18th century, and it takes place during the Spanish Inquisition. It follows a monk named Ambrosio who ends up following his temptations after pushing them off for so long in order to become the lead monk in his chapel, and I thought it was extremely interesting. There are lots of different themes in here. There's also a lot of triggers, so this is for some really intense fans of horror. There is torture, there is discussions, there's brujeria and santeria and whatever you want to call it, witchcraft. It is absolutely interesting and fantastic, and there were certain points in the book where I didn't think things were necessary, but everything tied together so well, and I want to see the movie because it's action-packed, and there will be a full review later on my channel, but I loved it. Also this month I read the very awesome and very hard-hitting Becoming by Michelle Obama. This book is absolutely amazing. I'm not yet done with it yet. I have a few pages left, but I read most of it in the month of July, and I know I'm going to finish it within the next 24 hours. So I am currently at this point giving it a 4.5 out of 5. It does talk about some very interesting subjects and very contemporary issues that I can relate to. I do want to do a full review on this because I think there are some points in here that need to be discussed further, but it covers a lot of subjects as far as marriage and politics, interfering with family life, and meeting expectations of your parents, and even just dealing with poverty. And it's so many important things that need to be further discussed, and I can relate to so many of the things that she went through her life, and that's why I want to do a full review on this later on in a speed drawing video on my channel, so keep an eye out for that. This next book I'm super excited about because it is one of my also favorites of this month, and that is the book Neon Genesis Evangelion Volume 3 This manga was so cool. In case you don't already know, I've started a series on my channel where I talk about comparing the anime to the manga and the adaptation, and this is the third volume in the series for the Neon Genesis, and the first part of that anime review video is already on my channel, so I will leave a link above for that. But all these tabs represent all of the differences between the anime and the manga, so this is the point where things start to get really juicy, and it talks about the backstory and about how the apocalypse happened. It gives us a lot more science info. We get a lot more information about Shinji's parents and what actually happened in the science experiment that went wrong and his mother went missing. The artwork in here is absolutely fantastic. So I think that if you are a major fan of this series, you definitely need to read the manga, or at least keep an eye out for my video where I talk to you about the differences, because we get a lot more explanation here. And I just think this is a masterful piece of work. I recently found out that there is another reboot, but just look at this amazing artwork. It's completely gorgeous. And I know that that other reboot is actually some sort of book, so I might end up reading that in the future, but this has been such a delight to read this month. And also this month I ended up reading The Picture of Dorian Gray, which I got as an ebook from my library, and I ended up giving this 4 out of 5 stars. It was extremely interesting. It is also, I guess, would be considered a horror novel. I'm not sure if this also qualifies as a gothic horror, but it's definitely a classic, and it follows a young man, a young about 20-year-old man named Dorian, who is being painted by his friend Basil, who is an artist, and he also meets Basil's friend named Lord Henry, and after learning about the beauties of materialistic things, he ends up wishing that the painting of him would grow old instead of him, so that he would forever be beautiful and get to enjoy life's luxuries. Things go terribly wrong, so I would definitely suggest this book if you were looking for somewhere to start with classics. Next, I read Anne of Green Gables, and I also read this as an audiobook from my library, and this is actually going to be fully reviewed in a vlog video that will hopefully be coming out next month sometime, so I'm not going to talk about it too much here, but it is a young adult classic novel, and it follows this young girl named Anne, and she does go through different situations as an orphan, of stereotypes placed upon women and women's education over 100 years ago, and so she ends up pushing boundaries and social stereotypes, and I think it is well worth the read. It follows her throughout her entire life in this series, so I will be doing a full review on this feature in my channel, and this month I will be reading the second in this series. Also this month I ended up reading Distracted, and I got this as an ebook in NetGalley, and I have to say I really didn't like it. I ended up giving it a 2-star, and I feel bad because I know that this is a debut author. However, it was supposed to be advice for teachers, and I really didn't get any advice out of it. He is a professor who wrote this book, and so the advice that was in here really seemed for new professors or people who have not spent much time in a classroom. But the gist of it is basically just as long as you get to know your students and you treat them as people, you will gain their respect, and they're more likely to listen to what you have to say in the classroom instead of just shouting information at them and hoping that they regurgitate it. So I'm very sorry that I didn't end up liking this, but I hope that the author does continue to write more things in the future, because this sounded very much like a dissertation instead of an informational book. So best of luck to this author in the future. Okay guys, those are all the books that I read this month. Every month we do a different location for a wrap up, and I post videos every week. See you next time. Bye!